I wanted to jump on today and talk about the summer transfer window, and more particularly how teams seem to be revolutionising the centre of the park, whether that be attacking midfielders, defensive midfielders, or more typical central midfielders. The big six, particularly in the Premier League, really seem to be focusing on these positions, and I wanted to jump in and rate how Arsenal, Manchester United, Tottenham, Liverpool, Chelsea and Manchester City have done with the players they've let go and the players they've brought into the centre of the park. I'm going to give each team a rating out of 10 as to how I think they've done in changing their midfield up going into the new season. Let's kick it off with what is one of the biggest transfers we've seen in many years in recent seasons, and that's with Arsenal. Arsenal have brought in Declan Rice, one of the best centre mids we've seen playing in the Premier League, finally getting West Ham some silverware in that Europa Conference League, which was an amazing moment for football, and I really enjoyed watching that game. Everyone loves a good underdog story, and West Ham winning that was just unbelievable. Rice is a leader, and that's something that Arsenal need. After letting go of former captain Granit Xhaka, who had had a fantastic season in all fairness, but had had a rocky relationship with Arsenal fans in the past. I remember Xhaka walking off the pitch at the Emirates and swearing at fans. So I know most had forgiven him, and he became an integral part of the squad that did really well last year. But I think we can all admit that Declan Rice is levels above Granit Xhaka in pretty much every area of his game. But coming in as the fourth most expensive player in Premier League history, Declan Rice has a lot to live up to. He's cost Arsenal over £100 million, but I believe he's going to slot straight into the team. Obviously, he's already got that Premier League experience. He doesn't really need to get up to speed with things. Already lives in London, doesn't have to relocate his family, which I'm sure would be a massively stressful experience for any players. This is a huge upgrade for Arsenal. They clearly missed Thomas Partey whenever he was injured last season, and having two world-class options in the centre of the park, when one's injured, the whole team isn't brought down. That is what could make the difference in Arsenal's season. Plus, with the added Champions League games, they're going to need to rotate the squad a lot more. I really do think that Declan will fit right in, and I'm going to give this transfer, because there's only been one at Arsenal, a rating of 9 out of 10. I fail to see how this can go terribly wrong, but you never know. Declan could have a stinker. Next, we're going to move on to a team who has really cleared out their midfield, and that is Chelsea. I think the first exit we've got to talk about, and this is one we'll touch on a little bit more, is Mason Mount, a player that no Chelsea fans probably expected to leave the club, and I didn't expect him to leave the club either. He's been there for many years, an academy graduate, but he was clearly interested in what Ten Hag was building at Manchester United. I'm sure he got a massive wage increase for moving over there, but we'll touch on that when we come on to Man United. Chelsea have lost some other players in and around that midfield area. You've got Kai Havertz, who has admittedly played as more of a forward, but has also played in that attacking midfield role whilst he's been at Chelsea. They lost Kante as well, who has been there for years, obviously won the league with Leicester, and then got that big move to Chelsea and has been an integral part of everything they've done since then. And they also sold Kovacic to Man City. Having already lost Jorginho in January as well, I am surprised that Chelsea have let all of these players leave. I know they needed a clear out, but to really lose the spine of your squad like that could have a bit of a negative impact. I suppose the performances last season won't point in that direction. It's time to take a look at some of the players they've brought in and what we think they'll bring to the squad. So the first person I want to mention is Christopher Nkunku, a player they picked up from Red Bull Leipzig. This deal had been agreed for a little while now. He's been doing fantastically well in the Bundesliga for a fair few seasons. Chelsea managed to pick up quite a lot of money for Mason Mount and Kai Havertz as well, and this is completely paid for Nkunku, who actually picked up more goals and assists than Kai Havertz and Mason Mount combined last season. It was a poor season for Chelsea, and the Bundesliga isn't quite up to scratch with the Premier League. But in my opinion, that stat in itself shows Nkunku must have a lot about him, and Chelsea have been eyeing him up for a while. So I see this as a massively positive move for them. Let's not forget as well, Chelsea did buy the second most expensive Premier League player in history in Enzo Fernandez in January. He's been bedded into the team, and he can fill in a little bit for that Kovacic and Jorginho role. And I know that Lampard spoke about him playing in a more attacking role, so it'll be really interesting to see what Pochettino decides to do with him next season. It's actually pretty crazy that Enzo Fernandez has been given an 8-year contract, 8.5 years in January, and he's on £315,000 a week. It's a price tag he really has to live up to, and he's really got to prove to Chelsea fans that he's worth that money. And now, this one isn't confirmed yet, but I would expect Chelsea to make a more defensive midfield signing as well. Obviously, Nkunku's going to fill in with that Havertz role, probably plays more of a centre forward, but there's big rumours, and today Chelsea had a £70 million bid for Brighton's Moises Caicedo rejected. Let's see what happens there. That'd be another really smart signing. And to be honest, overall, if they get Caicedo, I think that this summer window for Chelsea is a massive sign of a reset. Getting rid of some of that dead wood, getting rid of some of those nearly 30-year-old or over 30-year-old players and replacing them with young, promising talent. The only thing is, some of these aren't proven in the Premier League. Obviously, Caicedo is, but we're yet to see what Enzo Fernandez proves, and Nkunku did it in the Bundesliga but might not match up with those stats in the Premier League. Still, I'd give Chelsea's overall transfer window rating so far an 8 out of 10. No messing around, let's move on to Manchester United, a team who has just stolen Mason Mount from Chelsea. Something that Chelsea, I don't think I've ever seen Chelsea fans this angry online. Shout out to Rory. This is really the only move that Manchester have made so far. It's looking like Fred's going to leave the club, which I think would be a smart move. May as well get rid of him. He's okay, but he's nothing special. This makes the Manchester United midfield trio one of the best in the league. Bruno Fernandes is a phenomenal attacking midfielder. Casemiro proved himself last year. Maybe he needs a bit of a better record in terms of disciplinary, but he's certainly good enough to be playing in the Premier League and for Manchester United. The addition of Mount gives them a bit more freedom. Of course, Mount can play on the wing as well. That could mean Rashford pushing up top. I guess we're going to have to see where Manchester do choose to play him. He's a proven winner. He's not going to crumble under the pressure. He had a poor season at Chelsea last year, a really poor season. So maybe the £65 million price tag might seem a little bit steep, but Mount is English, and as we know, that English tax always gets added on, and he's still only 24 years old, so he's got time to improve, but he is already good enough for the Premier League. Right now, I'm going to rate this transfer window a 7 out of 10 for Manchester United. It's a good move, but I'm not sure it's a £65 million move. Keeping with the Chelsea theme, let's move on to Manchester City, a team that picked up another Chelsea centre-mid leaving the club, and that is Mateo Kovacic. See, when it comes to Manchester City, I think that they've probably had the worst window out of all the teams we're going to talk about, and that's simply because they've lost Ilkay Gundogan, who has been an instrumental part of what they've done in the last few years. Kovacic isn't going to bring in the goals and assists that Gundogan did. I don't think he's a particularly bad player, and I also think that Manchester City do have the talent in the squad, and especially the attacking talent out of midfield, to be fine. They've got De Bruyne, they've got Phil Foden, they've got Bernardo Silva, who's looking more likely that he's going to stay at the club. So I get it. I'm not saying Manchester City are going to do rubbish, but I just think in terms of swapping Gundogan for Kovacic, it's a pretty poor move. So I'm just going to be blunt with this one. I'm going to rate Manchester City's midfield transfers as a 3 out of 10 so far. Obviously, other things could happen. Let's move on to Liverpool. Liverpool's midfield has been the one element of the squad that's let them down for the last few seasons, in my opinion. And I think that that's mainly due to a lot of dead wood and ageing players. They really needed to reset that midfield and get in some new, fresh blood with some new motivation. And to be honest, just better players that aren't constantly injured and losing it. And so far, I think they've done a very good job of doing that. So Liverpool have managed to get rid of, this one isn't confirmed yet, but Fabinho has been given permission to go to Saudi Arabia. They're talking about a £40 million move right now, which that'd be a huge fee to pick up for Fabinho, given he didn't have the greatest season. Appreciate that he is one of the core members of the team and has been there for many years, but £40 million, most Liverpool fans would be very happy with that. They've also got rid of Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita, both of which decent players, they're just injury prone. You can't rely on them to be the centre of the midfield for a whole season. You're lucky if you can rely on them to be the centre of the midfield for more than 4 or 5 games in a row. It's a shame with Chamberlain, because when he's had runs in the team throughout his career, you can see he's got some talent, but he's just never managed to hit that next level due to some unfortunate injuries. And then another person that's left is James Milner, a player that I still think has a lot in the tank, given how old he is. It's very impressive. But again, you need to start getting players like that out the team, aging a fair bit. We're still yet to see if Henderson's going to move. There's been a lot of rumours around that. But again, that would be very similar to the other ones. So I think the players that Liverpool have got rid of have been fantastic. Let's move on to the players they've brought in. The first player that they brought into that midfield was Alexis McAllister, a player that had a fantastic World Cup and was Brighton's top scorer last season. So not only are you bringing someone in that's going to have that creativity in the centre of the park, but also someone in who can grab a goal, has already been playing in the Premier League and should be on top form and have bags of confidence after the season he's just had. And to be fair, Liverpool only paid $40 million for McAllister, which is a really good price for someone who was playing as an attacking midfielder and a top scorer in a Premier League team last season. I think they've done fantastic business there. Liverpool have also acquired the services of Dominik Szoboszlai. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this fella, I can't lie. I've just watched a highlight compilation on YouTube. Looked pretty good, but at 22 years of age, he seems to have impressed everywhere he's played and apparently has the attributes to do the same in the Premier League. I'm going to give Liverpool a solid rating of 8 out of 10 so far. I really like what they're doing in terms of getting rid of the deadwood and bringing in young talent. We'll see how that pays off for him this season. So we're on to the last of the big 6 clubs and their midfield revolutions. Before I get into Tottenham, let me know in the comments who you think has had the best transfer window out of all these teams, and what central midfielders that have joined the Premier League or moved clubs do you think are going to have the biggest impact. Anyway, Tottenham, a pretty simple one, really. They got rid of Winks, who, in my opinion, clearly wasn't good enough to play in a top 6 team, and they've acquired James Maddison, a player who has consistently been one of Leicester's best performers, even last season, in a season where Leicester were relegated from the Premier League and didn't do too well at all. Maddison was a shining light. I do think that Tottenham's midfield could still do with some more improvements, as could their defence. Really, it's only the attack that's fantastic in my opinion. I would hope for their sake that they sign some more midfielders. So for now, I'm going to give this midfield transfer window a 6 out of 10 for Tottenham. There's a few other midfield players that have joined the Premier League or left the Premier League that I just wanted to chat about that really emphasise how much this has, in my opinion, been the summer of midfields. I've never seen this. Normally, when it's the summer transfer window, people will remember those marquee signings of strikers, of wingers, maybe a goalkeeper. But this season, it's all been about the centre of the park. And I think actually the biggest example of this is Tonali, who has joined Newcastle. I think this is by far Newcastle's biggest statement signing yet. Signing Tonali, who's just 23, he's already won the league with AC Milan, played at the San Siro for many seasons. Even just this year, he was in the semi-final of the Champions League. For Newcastle to manage to acquire his services, whether he wanted to come or not is a completely different matter. I think that is huge. Another one to mention is Aston Villa picking up Yuri Tielemans from Leicester on a free transfer. I think we can all see the talent that Tielemans has. Obviously, Arsenal have sniffed around him. A few of the other top 6 teams have sniffed around him. And with Aston Villa really trying to push on and challenge for those European spots, this is the exact type of smart signing that they need to be making. I know Pau Torres has joined as well, who is a fantastic addition to the spine of that squad. So I'm excited to see what Villa do next year. I think that the race for the top 6 is going to be even more hectic than this season. But to finish it off, the debate of which team has the best midfield in the Premier League currently is a very tough one. And I think it's one we'll probably do on the channel when we're doing a live watch-along at one of the big derbies in the Premier League. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure you'll see that soon. And let me know if you agree that this transfer window has been particularly focused on midfield players. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and all of that stuff. The socials will be in the description below. We're a new channel, so anything to help us grow is massively appreciated. Peace.